Andy, I'll do a 10-minute presentation on zero. Yeah, I'll do kind of on zero and just take up all your time.
That's absolutely perfect. You carry on.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay. Okay, am I sharing a screen at the moment? Yeah, you can see mine. So yeah, hi everyone, welcome to Friday's session. Today we're going to be talking about Area Prism, or Andy, you're going to give a short presentation, then we'll go into discussion. We're going to be comparing cost management with carbon management and talking about the parallels and differences. But yeah, Andy, do you want to take screen or we'll just go from there?
Yeah, no, I'll start sharing my screen if you don't mind. So hopefully you can see this. Hopefully this is clear. I can't see anyone who raises their hand or wants to say something. So perhaps if we go through the slides and then we can start. So first of all, happy Earth Day today. Very glad to be here. Thanks for joining us at this Lunch and Learn session. My name is Andy Langridge. I'm the Director of Business Development for Aries in the UK, but I'm also a professor at the University of Bath, and I'm also Director of the Association of Cost Engineers. All three of those organisations have been very helpful in helping me push the decarbonisation agenda, both inside my own company and with inside the other two organisations. So what's the problem? The problem is there's as much carbon in the building phase of an asset as there is in the 30 years of operation. Okay, so that's a big number. So we need to be very careful on the capex side. But we also need to trade capex against opex if we're going to go and decarbonise our deliverables. And the building and infrastructure projects account for 38% of total global emissions. We are building the equivalent of a Paris every week. So you look at the size of Paris, globally, we build one of those every week. So it's quite scary. We've just done an industry report, which when I send out these slides, you can click on this link, or if you watch LinkedIn next week, it'll be there. We've just finished our first global report on sustainability and project management. It's very interesting. A third of us in the UK are not even thinking about tracking sustainability. They've not even started to think about it. A third of us, even with all the things that have gone on in the last 3 or 4 years, a third of us not even started. North America, it's nearly 50%. Very scary. Very, very scary. So why do we need to track and cost carbon? Why track cost and carbon? Well, the trouble is this. I'm hearing lots of people saying they're decarbonising their supply chains, they're decarbonising their deliverables. But unless you measure it, I don't think you can improve it. So for me, I want data. I want people to come with real data from real projects that they've gathered in nearly real time. And let's look at what we're doing. Once we've got a baseline, we can start to deliver improvements. Now, people say to me, well, that means we can't start before we've got all the data. No, please start, fail fast, get the data wrong, and then move on and start to understand where we're going. So I'm not suggesting for a moment that we don't start. What I'm suggesting is that we start to learn, as we did with cost, what we need to track and what's significant and what we can afford to treat as noise in these projects. We're typically focused on infrastructure as a company, and so we're moving through the PAS 2080 categories. They're as good as anything else at the moment. There are other people pushing other agendas, which I'm very happy at, but actually it works out to be two things. What's it going to cost me in terms of carbon and cost to deliver the asset, and what's it going to cost me in terms of carbon and cost to run the asset? It doesn't matter if you're building houses or cars or railway systems. You've got a cost and carbon tariff to deliver that particular asset, and then you've got the through life cost and carbon to run the asset, and again, people quite rightly say, and disposal and But when I look at disposal, I then start thinking, well, hang on a minute, what about circular economy? What about repurposing? What about how can we extend the lives by doing condition-based monitoring? How can we better use asset management to drive value? And that's what we're trying to do now. We're trying to drive value through the cost and carbon tariff set. One of the things I get quite frustrated about is people have a team that estimate cost and a team that estimate carbon, and very rarely in my experience do the numbers ever match up. Can they ever assign a carbon value to an estimate value? What we've done with the Environment Agency is we've built a single point of truth for cost and carbon estimating. So as I estimate the asset, it delivers not just cost but carbon at the same time. Now I've stopped talking about cost and carbon. We are just estimating the tariffs that we need. So we estimate resource. We don't actually estimate cost, we estimate resource. And based on that resource consumption, we have a cost and a carbon tariff that we need to pay to realize the asset. So you shouldn't be doing your estimates in different places. You should be doing your estimates in the same place using the same rule set of quantity and productivity. Same when you want to capture. It's no good me doing really good estimates and then I run the project and at the end I say, well, I hit my carbon tariff. I did what I said. That's no good anymore. We've seen reporting at the end of life cycle for a deliverable of an asset. That's no longer possible. Now we need to have our carbon reporting, our carbon consumption treated exactly the same as we have cost and progress. Why would it be any different? Why would we need to make it any different? Okay. Now, what I will say is that in my opinion, we are carbon estimating and carbon governance. We are at least 25 years behind where the cost people are now. We understand far more about estimating cost than estimating carbon. We understand far more about the governance and the collection and reporting of cost data than we do about carbon. Doesn't mean we shouldn't start. Now we're very lucky at Aries that our governing body, our product management team, have already invested in doing this because they could see it was coming down the track. They were very early adopters of the ability to track both cost, carbon, and any other environmental value. And we're even moving now into social benefit, the classification and modification of social benefits. So these things are coming. We can't hold back the tide. We should be encouraging people to do this. Now, once you've got all this information in the system, once you've got all this information in a database and it's all valid and verified and it's rich in terms of its information set, then we can think about dashboards and reporting. What I see a lot of people doing is they create their dashboards first and then they're feeding them from nothing. And then people query the numbers in the dashboards and quite rightly, there's no governance and there's no substantiation of the numbers. Start with the databases, get them up and running, and then these dashboards fall out. So you can look at this, you can look at cost and carbon. I can look at 2 different schemes and say what's best for my cost and carbon. I can look at schemes in different geographic areas or different types of project. You can do whatever you want once you've got the data. It's collecting that data that's clean and meaningful and is information rich that we need to do. Now, what these dashboards should be giving us is insight. They should be telling us where we need to put our efforts. Where's the big carbon blocks? Where's the big carbon challenges? This is what they should be telling us. Same with this. We should. This is really interesting. This is looking at carbon exactly. It uses exactly the same report. It uses exactly the same techniques to do earned carbon as we do with cost. We've earned schedule and earned cost. There's no difference. It's just another tariff. It's just another currency that we're playing with inside the system. The reporting of that can be as a quantity, or it can be as a a quantity value or some other metric, but it's still the same. We're still trying to see what carbon have I got, what carbon have I got in my budget, and what's my actual carbon expenditure. Where was I able to save carbon by maybe using different materials, alternative materials, and where did I go over my carbon tariff because something went wrong with my material deliveries or something went wrong with my productivity. So we should be treating them exactly the same. You need a common data environment for your cost and carbon. Why they would be different, why they would be separate, I have no idea. Everything should link together. We should have our 3D models, our schedule to give us 4D, bring in our estimates to give us 5D, bring in our cost and actuals to give us 5D post-contract. This should be one continuous dataverse for everything that we need to do. Not all in the same product. I'm not suggesting you might get a monolithic product, but the fact is these days we can link data sets together from their in-context databases through to the point where we want to create insight very rapidly and very easily. There's lots of tool sets out there that do that for you. You don't need to be a big data lake. You can if you wish. You don't need to build a big data lake. You can go and take detailed data in context from their originating system and publish it into an insight book or a dashboard, or you can run 5D or 5D plus change, whatever you want to run. Okay, so this should be one common data environment for cost and carbon. You get it all in a box these days. It shouldn't be any other way. It should be out of the box now for everybody. We shouldn't be thinking about carbon as an add-on, as something extra, as something different. It's the same, and we should treat it the same. Now, I'm not suggesting for a moment there aren't challenges in the calculation of carbon. I say we're 20, 30 years behind where we are now with cost. Particularly, I think it's relatively straightforward to do the embedded carbon, the A1 to 3. I think what's tricky at the moment is the transport carbon. I think we've got site carbon where we're using fuel on site. That's relatively straightforward. There's some arguments about how you know you were using that equipment all the time or not. But the big tricky one for me at the moment is transport carbon. That's something we're working very hard on. I would be very pleased to speak to anyone who's got some ideas in that area. But it should be out of the box. It shouldn't be an add-on. And that's it. That's all I wanted to say today. That's my 10 minutes of fame gone. And now let's have some questions and some discussion. Although I'm dyslexic and that doesn't actually say discussion, but that's good.
And Andy, can I kick us off and be selfish and go first?
Yeah, well, let's stop. Do you want to stop the recording now, or do you want to keep it up?